Hi, y'all. It's Brigitte Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is John Parsons. He is a former journalist and he's now a full-time book ghostwriter and editor. And he's also a full-time partner in video production studio that helps make promotional book trailers. So he likes to help other authors find their best voice. Can you say hi, John?
Hey, thanks, Bridget.
Thank you for being on. We are
Oh,
both from a similar background. We're
yeah.
both book nerds. He actually, which is not a problem, right?
It's not a pejorative. It's actually an actual badge of honor.
It is. I think growing up that books played a big part in my life, and I think that was my time to think and engage with the world differently, different perspectives. And we were fortunate. John and I did not have all this digital stuff that this current generation has. I think there's pros and cons to everything. So I think it's so cool, by the way, that you became a journalist. You obviously have a passion for writing. How long
Mm.
were you a journalist? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, I was in journalism school at Syracuse, and then I dropped out to become a printer's apprentice. Um,
Oh, wow.
and then years later, I came back and I still wrote a lot between college and when I started to write, be a professional journalist. But I was hired by the Siebold Report, which some people may remember is a journal about printing and publishing. So I got to write about the thing that I left school to do. So a little bit of full circle there.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I got into it. I joked by accident because I had to get a job as a college student.
Mm,
Because I like books. I wanted to work for a publisher, but I did work for a couple publishers, but I ended up staying in the industry for the book production
yeah.
because, John, back then, publishers owned their own manufacturing equipment. People don't
Oh yeah.
realize that. And that's kind of how for some reason I went down that path and I stayed down that path and I
Mm,
enjoyed it.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, anything involving writing or or doing videos about writing. So there's a theme to what we do.
What is the theme? What is
Um, that ideas expressed in a print medium. I mean, you can have digital medium that has all kinds of reach and connections to all kinds of related data. So I view electronic media as being horizontal. It's miles and miles wide, but only an inch deep because you don't have the time to dig in.
right?
When you have the haptic experience of holding on to a printed book, and there's actual research about that, the printed page and touching it and turning the pages does something neurologically that's different from what you experience on a screen. And so the studies that are out there talk about the depth of learning you have with a printed book or experience with a printed book, whether it's a textbook or a novel. It does different things to your brain than when you see it on a screen. Plus, with a screen, there's every other thing has a distraction. Um,
Yes.
Amazon still pops in ads, or they used to. So it's a lot of. I'm pretty ADD, so it's deadly for me to do stuff on a screen unless I turn off all the distractions, which is hard to do. A printed book, you can immerse yourself in it, and your imagination takes you where it needs to go.
I like that. It can calm you down too.
It
Because
does.
you're focusing on that moment and with
Yeah.
that book in your hand.
You can contemplate more and imagine more and ideate more, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And I think the printed version of it is a better vehicle for
Oh, I totally agree with you. I one of the books I'm reading right now is called Green Lights by
that. Mm,
Matthew McConaughey. I got it from the library. I support local libraries too,
sure, of
and
course.
I was able. Someone donated it, so I bought it for like $3. I wasn't expecting it. Is written so well, and part of it. He knows how to communicate because he's an actor, but it's physical and it's designed properly too.
Mm, sure. Well, yeah, and people neglect when people publish themselves, just throw it into a template for ebook or for, and you know this, um,
Yeah.
it's people think that typography is irrelevant, and they think that gray space on the page is irrelevant. All the stuff that print nerds like us care about, um, and you get tired. You're asking when you write or produce a book, you're asking the reader to invest a lot of time in of their time in your book, and if you don't make it worth the investment, one of the worst ways you can cheat them is by having it produced in a way that just is visually unsatisfying. That's
Sure.
why when you look at a book that was produced really well, especially when there were no electronic alternatives, you just go, it's like a piece of cake. You love it. You have this. You want to consume it because it pleases all the senses, a lot of the senses. And if you throw that out, then you're asking them to do more. And what's their reward? It's an exchange. You're offering an idea as an author that needs to be worth their time, not just the writing, but all the things that you use to produce it and display it. It's like you care about them, so you don't just make them make them work harder to read it. And that's what reading on a screen sometimes is really tough,
It
because
is.
you have to do more visually, and it's tiring. It literally is tiring if you're viewing it on a certain kind of screen.
It's probably long term. I'm thinking maybe not good for your eyes either. I
I'm
mean,
sure. Oh, I'm
the
sure it's
screen
not.
versus
It,
a
it
so
messes up. It messes. I mean, you shouldn't be reading super late at night, but if you read on a screen, it messes up your circadian rhythms and all the things that they're saying. People who use their phones late at night have trouble sleeping. That's why.
that's one of the things I have my phone not ever in my room because you're going to be tempted to look at it, or you might get an alert. I should say alert, but some kind of text or something. So I keep that you know, out of my bedroom. And we've learned over the years, I think what you're doing as well is you're helping people um, share their information, like you said, the knowledge that they have.
Mm.
And some people want to write books, but they're still afraid to. And I think if you are an author, say you are an author, you're almost like a superstar to a lot of people, right? I think that's what you're doing is amazing.
When I ghostwrite, I try to get inside the author's head
Right.
and figure out where they're going. And sometimes they don't have the time. Sometimes they really don't have the faculty to compose that written piece. They A lot of people that I write for um, are great public speakers, but they write like they speak, and
I
they repeat themselves a lot. And so I get to untangle that and say, this is a great message, but your vehicle is for you being at the podium or with the microphone and a TED talk. It's not the same thing. It's not the same. So I have to I have to get them rewired and talk to them about it. Sometimes my authors go ahead and write a bunch of stuff that I edit, but a lot of times it's just I don't know how to say this. In chapter 4, what's going on? Where are we going? And I sort of become a hybrid book coach and ghostwriter.
right.
But a ghostwriter isn't somebody who takes dictation. A ghostwriter is somebody who gets in the author's head with their permission and tries to express something in an unfamiliar vehicle, which is for many of them, it's writing a 50,000 word book. It's not something everybody can do.
Is a ghostwriting usually for nonfiction? I'm
Mine
assuming.
is. Mine
Yeah.
is. I imagine there are fiction ghostwriters, but I cannot fathom how that happens because
Right.
novels are an invention of the mind. I'm not a Vulcan, so I can't mind melt my
I was just I was assuming that because I know I've asked some people before, like audiobooks, as you know, are popular now, and
yeah.
who are into audiobooks. The nonfiction version, they said they prefer the actual author being the speaker,
Yep. Mhm.
and then the nonfiction they prefer like a voiceover actor because it is your imagination gets involved with a fiction
It
book.
depends. It depends. I've done it both. We've done audiobooks with voiceover. Um, some of my authors use voiceover guys, and some of them do it themselves. But audio recording is a lot of work. I mean,
Yes.
you're not. It's not the same time it takes to read it. You have to do multiple takes,
Yes,
So
you got to edit it too. Still,
and edit yourself and say, "Ooh, what was that?" The only problem with a voice artist is that you have to train them on certain words that they're not familiar with. So the
that's true.
retake the retakes are when they mispronounce or misrepresent something, or it, it
Right.
just sounds weird. And never ever use an AI for voiceover. We tried
No.
with some of our video work. We tried doing a voiceover just to see what it was like, and it took as much time. It cost the client just as much money for us to tweak the darn thing than it would be for to hire a decent voice artist and do the video um, voiceover, because you have to train it to use it to break at certain times, say the words, pronounce them correctly, and not sound like a robot. And we were never totally successful.
Really, yeah. I played around with AI only with ideas, not with like, audio or video like you. Because it's here, but I think I think a longer way to go to be.
It has a long way to go, and I don't think it'll ever truly get there because the energy cost of doing AI is enormous. It's
Yes.
enormous. And we're really focused on sustainability. Me as personally, and our video group, trying to do more and more work, video work and sustainability. And very few people calculate the cost of all that calculation, because the energy that has to power the servers so that the training data can be, the predictive models can be set up. It's usually in poorly regulated states or countries where the energy comes from.
Yes.
So something like a Google search is, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's orders of magnitude different if you make an AI search versus an old-fashioned Google search.
Wow.
And
Right. And it's something that I haven't embraced it, but I wanted to learn about it, understand it, because I need to be prepared, right?
mm,
Well, and I'm also, like you said, even though haven't done audio or videos, just the editing of ideas you ask it, it takes a lot of time still.
it does, the thing with AI is data from the past. So
Yes.
if you want to sound like what was already said, AI is a handy tool.
Yes.
The energy cost notwithstanding. But if you want to imagine something that hasn't been thought of before, which is what authors do,
Yes.
fiction or nonfiction, they imagine what could be, because that's where we've evolved to think about those things. We're the species that thinks about, well, what does this look like if, um, and it's unique to us, but we can't create a book or a movie or something based on I guess a lot of movies are based on what was already done. Look at the Marvel universe, um,
Right, right.
but the things that really break through in our imaginations in a book, say, they come from the mind of someone who's not bound by the past. They use it. They can think of something else.
And
Sorry, I get all worked up. This is
no, that's okay.
it's
I'm
not,
just
I don't think AI is not a threat. AI is a challenge because it's gonna be sound like the same old thing over and over again, and that will give authors the opportunity to say, "Hey, what's different? What can we do?"
I you made a point there. I've seen stuff posted a lot online, like even on LinkedIn. I could tell it was written by AI
Mm.
because of the words that are used so over and over again.
I know, right? Right.
Right, I could tell.
I was writing a book for somebody, and he was talking about mission, uh, the importance of passion for mission in his book. And so, as an exercise, and we actually use this in the book, I had an AI write a mission statement for a company X that does certain thing. I set the parameters, and it was so BS. It was so full of everything that you've ever heard before, and ignore almost on sight a mission statement that says we do the synergy this and the we're customer focused that, and it regurgitated everything that it knew about mission statements that were meaningless. They were meaningless to begin with, and AI just said, "Sure, we'll use those."
And they're repurposing it and you still gotta, it's just so
Well, it was technically accurate.
right.
It's because they made widgets or whatever we specified, so it kind of filled in the boxes, but it didn't say anything other than what had been said a million times, and it sure didn't speak from the heart of anybody.
No, it was, yeah. It's It was AI. And
Yeah.
as going on that path, I've noticed on the AI stuff, marketers are really pushing it a lot. I should say pushing it, but there's marketing companies who specialize in AI this and AI that.
Yep.
And that kind of marketing, from my perspective, John, I mean, I have a degree in it, but it people have a bad, I don't know, feeling towards marketing sometimes, right? For
Well,
some reason.
they feel like it's insulting because they're not really engaged with them. They're trying to mask, get a whole bunch of people, and if 10% of them buy the product, that's enough. It's AI is a little bit like SEO for me. SEO
Yeah.
has its place, but as soon as you get to the top of the mountain, somebody's going to push you off. And just if you have AI write your stuff so that it's SEO, and the joke is you're having a robot create words that another robot will read, and create this artificial distinction, whereas the author or the company or the whoever who actually connects one to one through a printed page or through an actual
Yes.
conversation, is far better positioned to actually benefit them to benefit each other than just getting to the top of a pretty artificial hierarchy of
It, and
top
as
of the search page means what exactly. I mean, and it
right.
does mean something, but it doesn't mean what people think.
No, and because of my background, I get annoyed with all that. I shouldn't say annoyed. I see it pop up a lot on my LinkedIn feed, and because LinkedIn has changed a lot too,
Oh, sure.
and we all have to adjust. That's what life is about, is adjusting. But I like how you're looking at the writing and the publishing aspect, physical books, and about the future and ideas and helping people with those changes. That's kind of
Sure.
how,
Hmm.
right?
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I've always felt passionate about that. Um, when I edit somebody, or when I'm writing based on even my own writing, I find that you don't say them in the order that you're going to read them in. You usually, we joke about this at home. What I'm writing and having trouble with something, and somebody say, "Well, what's in your second paragraph? What's in your third paragraph?" And I go, "Oh yeah, because it belongs in a different place." And AI is kind of ignorant of that. It sort of knows the rules, and it'll make your paragraph technically correct, but the real idea doesn't come with the first words you write as an author.
Right.
The real words, and I'm constantly looking ahead. I've written a bunch of stuff, or I'm editing a bunch of stuff, and I'll go fishing in the second and third paragraph, and bring it forward and make it the star, because it was hiding behind the stuff, like you're sort of, people have a throat clearing exercise. I'm thinking, and they're warming up, and so they say a lot of nonsense in the beginning, or they write a lot of nonsense in the beginning. It doesn't really hit the point, and then once they get warmed up, that's where the gold is. So
Yes, that's true. But that is a great idea on one of like a rule of thumb for writing, correct?
it's
Not
one
just
of it's one of mine for
yeah.
my own.
What are your other some good rules of thumb you
Oh
recommend?
wow. Well, I do nonfiction, so they're skewed towards that. But one is, if you're going to use personal anecdotes, first of all, don't. But if you have to, they have to be like a minimum number that really, if you're telling something from your own experience, it really has to connect. You have to weed out all the stuff that, because unless you're famous, and even if you are famous, a personal story is not going to do you much good. So I try to tone that down, in my writing. And the same thing applies to inspiring stories about other people. I've had two authors want me to use the story of George Washington helping his men dig a ditch. Nobody knew who he was until the end. And I always go to Snopes or someplace to check stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them, no, urban legend. There's a lot of urban legends that people use in public speaking and in their thinking, and I I know why they're attractive, but I try to weed that out. Um, um, and the way we write now is different than it was in the pre-digital, pre-broadcast days. What Neil Postman talks about is the typographic era. where you only had your cues were maybe a table of contents, maybe an index, and a chapter head. You have to write and compose your writing in more of a visual style. Not overdo it, but I use sidebars, I use call outs like a magazine style almost. Sometimes illustrations, or I suggest illustrations, because we've shifted away from just watching a roll. Look at an old newspaper from the 1800s, and it's just columns of text. It would blow everybody's mind today. So one of my rules of thumb is to design visual elements on the page. And well, like I said, my other rule of thumb is your best idea is hidden 3 paragraphs down. Um, um, and I guess I sort of mentioned my fifth one was try not to write the way you speak, because the way you speak, it comes across and it doesn't translate as well on the page. I'm not a super stickler for grammar, although my son's bought me a grammar police T-shirt. But it's a different style, and a lot of times when we speak, as I'm probably doing now, is I repeat myself, or I go back and have placeholders and ahs and ums, and I'm searching for the words as I speak them. That's why everybody needs an editor. Everybody needs somebody to edit their stuff, because you don't always know. Sometimes you get blind to what you're doing. You don't see your own mistakes. So I always want people to edit my stuff.
Right.
And so that's kind of those are some of my, I wrote them down. There's probably more. But yeah, I think the visual cues thing is, you can overdo it. You can have too much junk on the page. But if you make something interesting, like a sidebar or some kind of a thing that, because also, and I don't really love it, but sometimes I use bullet lists, because they're ways to get, excuse me, they're ways to get information to stick, and people can come back to. I look back at a book and say, where was the thing that he said so and so? Visual cues can help with that.
Right. You were talking about the visual cues, and I mentioned that Green Lights book earlier. The design was so cool because it has the interior design, excuse me. It has whenever he uses the word green light, it's in green,
Oh,
right? And then it stands out. And then at the end of a chapter or whatever, he has, or the designer put in like a handwritten postcard with some, like, it's not real, but it's like it's like a postcard taped to the
yeah.
page. And and it gives a summary of whatever. The majority of that book came from journals he's kept over the years.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay.
that's what makes it cool. I mean, I don't know if he had a ghostwriter, but it sounds like he's talking to me the way it was written. And he has, I think I'm liking this book more than I expected because of the design, John. Like, it's physical, and it has those images that you mentioned.
Well, think about music that you love. The music has so many different participants in addition to the musicians,
Mhm.
and things that the composer or the songwriter is only one piece of it, and you've got other ways to package that album or that single. And there's a ton of stuff, technical stuff that goes into that. I mean, the sound engineers. There was a Dire Straits. I forget the name of the song. Dire Straits song that was the result of a great guitar riff in the opening. It was a total accident. They set up the mics wrong, upside down, and got a feedback that was awesome. But it was this creative genius that nobody hears, because the guy who wrote the song went with what his designers, his allies. Book
Yeah.
writing is a community project. Even if you're really a solo writer and you're a great writer, there's so many people in that universe that you depend on to do their part to bring out the ideas. People who self-publish have a lot on their plates, man, because they have to think about things that they've never thought about.
Right. It's, to me, a book is it's a community, like you said, a community thing. It's a collaboration. You got to get ideas from each other,
Oh, yeah.
and designers, to me, are just as critical as the
Yeah.
writers.
that's the part. That's the part that is fodder for your social media campaigns. So, and my rule of thumb for people building their authors building their platform, they say, well, when do we start publicizing this? And my rule of thumb is a year before you start writing, um, because you have to be talking about your big ideas before you get to the point where you want to put them in book form. Um, but that process, that collaboration, that really neat thing that happens when the band's back together and you're doing the different parts of a book, um, that goes into your socials. That goes into your videos when we do
And then
video stuff, and try to make it about the ideas and how cool it is that we can riff together on these ideas, as opposed to, I'm writing this long treatise on, procurement software or whatever the security software. Really, really boring. But even that's collaborative, because you have to know other people that know other things. None of us are doing this alone.
I think that's what people need to know if they're going to publish, even if they decide the indie route, wherever you want to, or self-publish, you still have to have someone to help you. It's
Oh
not,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
it,
Absolutely. And they need people who can stand at your side and coach you. Not maybe not formal coaching. You need someone to hold your hand sometimes when things get crazy, or when you're my bane is that I'm distracted all the time. I've got all this stuff going on, so I have to shut off all my notifications, put my phone over in the other room, just so I can get some writing done.
you have to make it I'm sure you've created a habit, or is it a daily thing, right? You have to do it a certain amount of time, or just
I've,
curious.
I've I have a day book that I stamp. I stamp all my early to dos. Then when I get to the writing part, I put everything away and turn everything off so I can write. So that's my habit.
That's a good habit to have. It's something that we all have different things in the morning. I like walk or run, and I get the ideas to something to write. That's
Right.
kind of helps me.
Yeah, actually, that's me too. Because when I do all my interviews with authors are over Zoom, and I get their permission to record it, and I listen to the recording when I walk. So that gets me back in their head.
That's awesome. I think
Yeah. No,
it's
it works when I remember to do it.
you're being honest. We're all there. We
No,
got
no, no. I'm scattered. I get the video stuff is I love. My sons are the mainsprings, the producers. But I get to brag about it and help bring in authors and bring in folks that can do it, and help with the script, because we have to have a script that matches their message,
right. Their
and
message for
ask
their
the
book.
question.
Right.
The most fun part, I guess it's fun, when I talk to an author about doing a video for nonfiction. I say, what are the 3 questions that your book answers? I don't try to explain the book, but with the video, we're gonna ask the questions in a way that makes people curious. And always they do 5 to 7 questions. That their book answers 5 to 7 things. I go, no, no, no. This
Come
is a
on.
90, this is a 90-second video tops. We need 3. So I bring it down to 3, and we use animation, and we use stock, and we use a bunch of things. Sometimes interviews that we record remotely to tell the story of what the questions are, and that's how we and it's kind of the way I think it when I write. This is our video business is kind of a capsule version of how I write, which is, so what are the questions, and then of course in the book we figure out how to answer them.
I think that's and I like the book trailers that you're creating, because it helps the author. Authors have a really hard time marketing themselves. They're not comfortable. I'm one of those
Oh
people.
boy. Oh
Yeah.
boy. No, because it's work. I mean, you say, I think in your book you said, "Oh, I've got the book done now and I can relax." Nah.
Right.
Um,
I'm gonna go take a nap. Right. That's
I've got to take. Well, I want to.
right.
Uh, I really want to. That's why the author platform needs to happen before you've even written.
Right.
And it's part of your. I have a when I do book proposals for authors to try to pitch to a literary agent. Um, I have an informal rule that another ghostwriter friend of mine develops. It says it's the rule of 10K. You have 10K somethings, people, connections, 10,000 or more people who are very likely to buy the book. That will interest a good literary agent who will then take that number to a publisher. It's not a hard rule. My gosh, because you can buy 10,000 Twitter followers, and they know that that's fake. So it's got, earned media. Are you in the news? Is there something about you or your concept? Do you do public speaking? Do you do other engagements? So it's really it's a lot of it's social, but it can be just local media coverage. You're a person who's known for this. Local people forget about what do you call them, newspapers, because they're in such hard times. But local media, local radio is still a thing, and getting or being on a podcast.
That's one of the reasons why I started this. It was based off of my first book. And I have now tons of authors. I should say tons. Majority of they're like you, they're writers and they're authors, because I want to help them get their message out there, because I think books are so important to me, and I want the younger generation to understand that too.
Yeah, and I think we're turning that. There's some studies that indicate that my son's generation and Gen Z younger are starting to figure out what books are all about, and it's not going to be all one thing. It's never going to be all print, but
Right.
audiobooks are starting to make a comeback, and ebooks have their place. So the platform's irrelevant. It's the story.
Yes.
Tell the story, and people. It's as old as time. Was happening before Gutenberg, but we're just finding all these new channels to say the message. It's exhausting, but boy, is it fun.
Yeah, you could tell your story in so many different ways. It made me think of, you could do it through music, you could do it through, right?
Yeah. Oh
You
my
could
God.
do it through dancing. You could,
Yeah.
those.
Exactly. And AI will never ever hit the mark. Not like that. We're going to get, but we're going to get a lot of trash. Fake novels written under somebody else's name with AI. That'll go through be in the courts for another century.
Yes.
But the thing is that it's not going to break through. There's not going to be a robot version of a Nobel Prize winner ever. I just don't see it. I've written enough about AI to know that the data are not going to be there to make that happen, even if it was possible. There's too much going on. The training data for AI is only as big as the internet. That's pretty big,
Right.
but there's a lot of rottenness in the internet, a lot of awful things, and eventually when blockchain really blossoms and data are more privately secured, good data. The only people that benefit from AI are people who own that data. We're in the gold rush days right now,
Right.
where all this stuff that OpenAI grabs is from the internet. It's like free. It's mining this free stuff. It's not going to last forever.
And you have to, like you mentioned the blockchain thing. I saw there was like a lawsuit. I think it's the New York Times is suing Chat GPT, whatever that company is.
It's New York Times is suing, yeah.
Because they're taking their content.
Yeah, exactly. They're using their IP, their content, their written content to train the AI to mimic it, but without compensating the original creators.
Yes.
So I think there's a bunch of newspapers and a bunch of publishers who are starting to get it. And so it's going to be it'll be years and years and years in the courts, of course. But in the meantime, my friends who are afraid of AI, especially the people who write short form, like marketing pieces and blogs, because it's so easy to do, I'll say, look, first of all, your stuff is original. I tell my writer friends. So let the AIs write for other AIs. Remember, he said, you've got AIs writing search content so that other robots can consume it and boost yours. Let the AIs write for AIs while you and I write for people.
Correct. Right, for humans.
Right. Humans writing for humans is still something we've done for eons, and it's something that a lot of people can do well.
That is so true. I love what you're doing, John, and I'm so glad that we connected, and
Oh, me too.
I love that the name of your company is Into Ideas. So
Into ideas. Yeah.
where can people, for the listeners, where can they learn more about you?
My my LinkedIn profile is probably in the notes.
Yes.
And then intoideas.com is the website, has some portfolio pieces about our videos. And iparsons.com is my ghostwriting site,
Oh,
which
cool.
has it's just a one pager of the stuff I do and some of the books I've written or edited. That's me.
This is so awesome. I get so excited when I talk to writers and authors. They're to me superstars. They always have
Yeah.
been.
Well,
And
some of them are. I mean, some of them are. I just finished a book for a guy who's he's my hero now because his principles of leadership are based on vulnerability and trust and a bunch of other things that are just totally outside the box. So we decided to title the book "Thinking Outside the Boss," not outside the box.
right.
And it really is he for years he ran his businesses like this, where he actually knew his people and he actually listened to them, and he wasn't invincible. He admitted when he was wrong, and he allowed himself to not be perfect. And I feel transported. I was able to help him with this book um, because I got to meet him, and he is in my book. He is a superstar. Well,
Love
now in his book too.
I love that you're helping elevate people with their ideas. That's yeah, why it's called Into Ideas, and
Mm.
you're helping create giving some good advice. It's marketing starts from the first day of the idea, right? You gotta get
Yeah,
some.
of course.
It's a long. It never ends.
It's
The
never
journey.
ending, and we can't do it alone. That's what the social thing. I mean, if you have allies in things like social media or just networking like this, then you have other people who can share those ideas. And sure, in some cases, it'll result in wider exposure for your book. But more important, it'll establish more connections with people that you want to do stuff with, and you want to make changes with.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
your
my pleasure.
beautiful insights, and
Yeah.
I will again.
Back at you too, because I've been reading your book. Um, Very helpful.
I always felt like an imposter, but I did it. So
Don't think so. Anyway, cool. Thanks.
thank you so much, John. Thanks for listening, everybody.